Hey, hello, John Dove here from the Advocacy Club. Tonight we've had the April session of the Advocacy Club, which has focused on debating. So tonight, members of the club have been involved in short debates that have been one-on-one. So I'm just going to share some feedback and some tips in relation to debating based on what I've seen tonight. So I'm going to start with the basics and to think about the structure itself. So with the debate, it's like any other form of presentation. You need to start with an introduction, and it only really needs to be quite simple, just to say exactly which side you're on. So just to say whether you're proposing or opposing the motion. And then from there, jump in and just say effectively what your argument is going to be. So it can be, I'm here to propose the motion, and I have 3 points to make, which are X, Y, and Z. Keep it quite simple. With the format of tonight's debate, there were 5 minutes for debaters to make their submissions. So if you think about it like this, I would say only aim for about 3 significant points, because that gives you about 90 seconds to develop each point. So that gives you sort of 3 points there. So that's why you'd say I've got 3 points to make, which are. You then move on to the sort of main part of your presentation itself. And as I say, probably 90 seconds there or thereabouts is probably what you've got for each point. So really try and develop each of those points rather than trying to squeeze in 4, 5, 6 points and only sort of skimming the surface with those. Go for fewer points and deal with them in more detail so that you can really develop those points and actually build upon the arguments that you're trying to make. And from there as well, think about how you present. So it's like any other form of public speaking. Think about your pace. A slower presentation style is a style that can be followed more easily. People can understand what you're saying, particularly if you've got people taking notes, and that makes you more persuasive. Also think about your style as well. You don't want to be sort of monotone. Having a bit of intonation in the voice can go up at certain times. You can increase the pace if it sort of matches what you're saying. And also, if you've got a dramatic point to make, you can make a pause at the end of that sentence and even increase the volume of the voice just to add that little bit of emphasis. It really adds to what you're saying. Another way that you can sort of bulk up your points as well is by relying upon authorities. Now, of course, this isn't a sort of legal argument here, so you're not going to have any case law legislation, anything like that to rely upon. But with something like this, there might be studies out there that you can rely upon, and that just gives you that little bit of authority. It adds some weight to the point that you're making and makes your arguments all the more persuasive. When it comes to the presentation as well, what you might also want to do is try and avoid the use of notes, because if it's obvious that you're reading from a script, well, number one, it makes you less persuasive. Number two, it makes you a little bit more wooden in the way that you present. And thirdly, it can you can be caught off guard if you have to go off script for any reason. So, for example, if one of the audience members raises a point of interest and you answer that question, when you then come back to your script, you might be lost. So really practice quite regularly. You'll become more familiar with your material and you'll be able to develop, be able to present the argument with aplomb. One other thing I saw tonight, a couple of filler words cropped up now and again, and filler words can be a little bit distracting. So it's something that comes up naturally. It happens to all of us. We've all got our etc. Tonight I saw a few likes. Just something to think about. If you've got a filler word, try and avoid it going in, because particularly if you use that filler word too often, it can become distracting. And you can almost have the audience thinking about, right, I'm going to start counting how many times this person uses the filler word rather than listening to what the argument is. So if you know about a particular filler word or a particular sort of arm that you might have, think about it and see if there's any way that you can eliminate that. My trick for doing so is to try and think about that in day-to-day conversation. And if you're conscious about it in your day-to-day conversation, you'll start thinking about it actively. I think a further point is to be confident with what you're saying as well. So coming back to the point on authority, we did have somebody that cited an authority and said there's a report that says, we'll finish the sentence with I think. So they said there's a report, I think, that says, we're here to be convincing. If you say I think, you've already raised doubt with your own presentation. So have confidence in what you're saying. It's about being the confident speaker, the confident presenter. and being the authoritative speaker. So if you say, I think, you've raised that doubt there. There is a report, there is an authority that says, have that confidence and be positive in what it is that you're saying. And the final thing that I saw, which I quite liked, was when it comes to the ending of the presentation. So naturally, with something like this, you've only got 5 minutes. So you want to spend as little time as possible on the intro and the conclusion so that you've got lots of time to really develop the points with some detail. But if you can have a short, snappy, memorable conclusion, something that the audience can take away, that's a nice way that you can wrap up the presentation and score some nice points at the end. So I hope that those tips have been helpful.